Hiya. In
Hello.
this episode, I am talking...
You didn't want me to say hello, sorry. Oh, shut
No,
up.
that's okay. I love it. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, all of River's podcast people. My name is Sacha Coward, and I am a queer historian, and I've decided to take over this podcast. It's my podcast now.
That's fine. I'll have a couple of weeks off. Knock yourself out, love. I am talking with the delightful Sacha Coward about narcissism and queerness and body image issues and allotments. Everything from Greek myths to vegetables. So stay tuned. This is probably true. Please be aware that the following contains strong language and adult themes. It would be boring without them.
I am a self-described queer historian, and I've just written a book about mythology and folklore and all that jazz. So I often, my brain sees things in terms of myths and legends. And today I kind of wanted to have a chat about, the ever omnipresent and difficult navel-gazy topic of being queer and body image and what that's all about and what's going on there, and unpicking all of that joyful, lovely, juicy trauma. But I thought to start with is the idea of Narcissus. So this is where we get the word like narcissistic personality disorder or being a narcissist, which by the way is like a buzzword that I think is so misused. Like it's just become this catch-all for every bad ex-boyfriend you've ever had. Whereas the story originates with this like young warrior, classic Greek myth. So he's beautiful, right? He's really beautiful and very pretty, and all the gods love him. And he's not interested because he's only interested in himself. And the classic version of the story ends up with him gazing at his own reflection in a river. And he does so for so long that in the end he transforms into the flower, the Narcissus, which always seems to bend over water. So the flower looks like it's looking at its own reflection. There's another part of this story, which is, as well as the origin of narcissism, is the origin of echoes. So the idea is he's followed by this young, very, very talkative nymph called Echo. And she just talks and talks and talks and talks like she's an utter chatterbox, driving all the other people mad until she's cursed, possibly by either Athena or Hera, to no longer talk so much and only ever have the last word. Because that's all she ever wanted, that's all she'll ever get. So she just repeats the last word that anyone says. And she follows Narcissus around, heartbroken, just in love with him. She can't speak to him. She can just repeat the last word that he says, and he thinks that she's just weird and irritating, and he's in love with himself. So these two tragic characters. He ends up becoming a flower, pining over his own reflection, and she pining over him. Basically, her body disintegrates, and all that's left is the last word, and that's the echo. So when you shout in a cave, that word that comes back, that's echo in her fruitless attempt to pursue Narcissus the narcissist. So that's the story. It's a good one. It's a good myth. It's the right balance of like beautiful and sad, and it explains why the flower does that and where echoes come from. But it's become something that has been, for better and mostly for worse, really associated with the queer community, particularly queer men and those perceived as queer men, I would say, mainly because Narcissus was a dude. So the original Narcissist was meant to be a man staring at himself. It's one of those things that I find really interesting because on one level, it feels really unfair and like problematic. Like just because, let's say, gay or bisexual men may be attracted to other gay or bisexual men, so people of the same gender, that doesn't mean we're necessarily self-obsessed. But then we get to the difficult bit that I want to talk to today. It's that little bit which is like, but
I love a good but.
Yeah, love a but. Does elements of just being queer, particularly being same gender attracted, does that lead us sometimes down the path of what looks like narcissism? Does the way that society is set up lead us into narcissism, just because that's the world we live in? And I can see that narcissism in myself. And I have a really uncomfortable, particularly when it comes to body image, attraction, all that stuff. And I can see like a whole litany of ancient history around same-sex, same-gender attraction and self-love. And it's a really icky place to go because I don't think anyone likes to admit. It's like saying I like the smell of my own farts. It's not nice. No one wants to be a narcissist. And to associate that with homosexuality, bisexuality, or just general queerness is something that's already done. It's really harmful. It hurts a lot of people. And I want to pull away from that. I don't want to be like, yeah, actually it's true. Because that also feels really... So I kind of feel like maybe today we could dissect that a little bit and see where it leads us.
Sounds fun. It'd be awkward if I'm like, no, doesn't sound interesting. Don't want to know. Not interested.
Can you pick something else? How can I put it? I think everyone has a narcissistic side. I think if you're completely empty of the ability to feel what we call narcissism, I actually think it can probably make you quite unhappy, because it's nice to catch yourself in the mirror. It's nice to feel good about yourself. Self-love, to a degree, is not a bad thing. But I have, and I think a lot of queer people do, a really uncomfortable relationship with it, which is I clearly do it. It's an insecure / overly secure thing, but then there's this other voice which is like, because I'm treating your podcast as therapy, right?
That's what I do every week. I wouldn't worry.
Which is kind of like, but why am I driving myself crazy about this? Like if I click on Instagram, I am deluged with largely, to be honest, like a lot of heterosexual cisgender influencers with incredible physiques, incredible faces. They look like Barbie dolls, beautiful, every kind of beauty you could imagine. And as far as I can see, at least in that image, there's no shame and there's no self-reflection and there's no self-torture. It's like, look at my lovely arms, look at my curvaceous form, I've got a big bum. And I'm not necessarily judging that, but I'm kind of like, why am I doing this? And then going into, maybe I need to look to mythology to understand my own hideous narcissism, when it feels like the average cis het person is like, I think I look really hot, and that's a good thing. There's an element of the queer navel gazing, which, this is where we get really weird. This is narcissism as well, right? Because you're thinking and talking about yourself. You're talking about yourself, talking about yourself. It's like a mirror standing between two mirrors.
We've gone all meta.
No, I broke the podcast. I'm so sorry. Sorry, River. Oh, God. I can only imagine if you're listening to this, you're pushing your fingers into your temple to the point you want to squeeze your brain out because there's just like some white gay dude who's like talking to you about it, the narcissism of his narcissism. I get it. I do. Let's try and ground it back to mythology's fun, right? Okay, so like...
We're getting a bit close to the painful shit. Let's move away from the emotions.
We can come back. Let's just put them there. We'll just put a nice glossy academic shield, cover it in plastic. There we go. It's in a library and it's safe. It's fine. The idea of like same-sex attraction and like body image is really interesting to me from a historical perspective. And a great book, I'm sure a number of your listeners have read it, called Bad Gays. They do a really good job unpacking this. Ancient Greece, ancient Rome, particularly in the West, have informed a lot of images of male beauty. The look, the physique. I mean, what you're seeing on Instagram, it's just Greek sculptures. It's almost the same. There have been a few tweaks, a few things that come in and out of fashion. As we can see, the 80s are different to the 90s. We seem to be getting like bigger and bigger and bigger for men. It's just like more and more roided is more and more normal. But you can still find statues of Hercules that look like the average Instagram model. And that's like something that we're quite used to. But what's really interesting to me is that image, I would argue, is very much built from a homoerotic space. So those statues, particularly of Antinous, so Antinous was the lover of Hadrian, Emperor Hadrian, who was a young Turkish boy from Bithynia, who was like plucked out of obscurity just for being beautiful. Statues of Apollo, statues of Hercules, who had many same-sex lovers and paramours. That most of these like hyper-masculine Captain America Men's Health magazine statues that we see, there is a knowing homoeroticism going all the way back to ancient Greece. So the creators, the subjects, the reasons they were made are often a celebration of the male form that was sexual. Like it was by men, for men, a lot at least. Now, that means that the image we are holding up right today and going, I want to look like that, or I want to find that on Grindr, or both, whatever. That image was already created possibly thousands of years ago through a different understanding of sexuality, but because of same sex, same gender desire. So you get into this whole thing of the history of same sex desire that we have received and we are doing today is already built on this slightly narcissistic, and that's difficult because I want to tell nice stories about queer people and not tell like all your viewers, hey, guess what, we're all narcissists.
It's important, though, to draw that line between, all you ever do is like pose and flex and look at yourself in pictures on Instagram as if you were indeed Narcissus staring into your own reflection, in love with yourself and doing nothing else, as opposed to, hey, look at this, I look really good.
Yeah. Maybe that line is really difficult to navigate. I find that line really difficult to navigate. And maybe it's a bit like rubbish, but I'm going to play like the queer card. Get your tiniest violin out and play it whilst flexing your biceps. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to make a big sweeping statement. Your queer experience is your own. But for me, I grew up basically feeling sort of like, and not in a hot way, when I say a weird asexual androgynous entity, not because I defined as asexual or because I wanted or felt I was androgynous, but that's how I just felt. I felt like, I didn't necessarily hate myself, but I was like a body with a face. And it had a face, and I would go to parties and watch my straight friends make out, and I would drink too much vodka, and sometimes one of my female friends would kiss me out of pity. That was basically, sorry, that's such a sad little story. But like, I want to be clear, like I actually had, in many ways, a very happy teenage, as happy as being a teenager can be. But being queer, I think we don't discover our own attractiveness or even the concept of being attractive or beautiful or interesting or desirable until much later. And so I can only speak for myself, but the first time another guy was like, hey, you're hot, mind blown. Like not just yay, but like my entire understanding of myself has turned on its head. I did not realize people could or were capable of seeing me that way. And so it's still at the tender age of 36, I feel like, I don't know, it feels like this toy I just want to play with, right? It feels like really, I'm sorry, that not in a kinky way, just like something really exciting and new. It's not, because I've posted a million selfies and they all look exactly the same. I'm very aware of what's going on. But every time I'm like, oh my God, I felt hot. Oh my God, I felt hot. Do I look hot? I think I'm hot. So part of that is I want to give myself permission. That's nice. And that little gay boy that didn't think that way would have been really excited. Oh my God, that must be amazing to feel that way. But I'm also aware that people are observing this. It's a bit cringe, isn't it? Like, it's all a bit cringe.
I'm definitely relating to what I'm nodding, and in my head I'm going, yeah. I've definitely been in that boat. Like I spent all of my 20s being very uncomfortable with who I was and what I looked like, and just generally, because a bit like you, I think maybe not the same reasons and that kind of thing, but I'm an unusual shape, not in any kind of like sad kind of way, but I'm well built. I've got broad shoulders, I've got a barrel chest, I'm 6 foot, so I'm already chunky, I'm already big. So when I would go out with my skinny twinky friends when we were 20 or whatever, and they'd all be in like belly tops or like skin tight things or like mesh things where they could show off their abs, I wasn't looking after myself properly anyway, so I didn't look like they did. But I also was very aware that I never would, because of the different way that I was built and shaped, and I grew up quite chunky anyway, so they didn't help, because bitchy queens will be bitchy queens and kids will be kids. So I can, when you're talking about, you're like, when you actually have someone call you attractive and you believe it, as opposed to just like, all right, what are you after? What do you want? Yeah. And it actually like, wait, no, like, what do you mean? Are you sure? It is powerful, and it is exciting and wonderful. And I totally get that. And when you start to believe that you are an attractive person, there's a tension between that. Yes, I am an attractive person. I am worthy of love, and which feels weird and feels very exciting, with the well-worn and not going away internal voice of, don't be stupid, you look fat in that, it's making your ass look ridiculous, you're hairy where you shouldn't be, your face is all saggy, you've got like crow's feet, saggy boobs, whatever it is, there's always going to be those voices in your head as well. And I find personally that there's a real tension between, yes, I am very attractive, and no, please don't look at me, I'm hideous. I think it's just going to be an ongoing thing. I don't see it going away anytime soon. And for me, at least, because we're doing therapy today, why not? Let's all have some therapy. I find the best thing to do is to kind of try and balance them out with each other. So in a kind of, not perfect. Bodies aren't perfect. The sooner you go, yeah, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And unless you're happy to do a lot of drugs and eat nothing but like steamed chicken for the next 6 months, you're probably not going to get that Instagram body. And that has to be okay.
Yeah, on an intellectual level, I'm okay with that. Like, I really don't want to devote so much of my life to something like that, to how I look to other people. I feel that would be such a waste of life to put everything into just, what being the most beautiful corpse you can possibly be when you die. It's sad. And I just like reciprocate, like in weird way, my teenage years, early 20s were like yours in reverse. It feels like you felt like you were big and taking up too much space, and you were with like the twinks with like, the tiny waists. And I felt like the tiny waisted twiglet, where people would make comments that were just, they weren't compliments, and the people giving them knew they weren't compliments, but it was always delivered like, oh my God, you're so thin. It's like you could eat anything, and you're just like a child. And I was like, nobody, when they're 24 at GAY out on the pool, wants to be told they look like a child, or get like called a little twink when you're having none of the fun that the other twinks are having, because you don't actually look like a twink. You look like a very, very skinny boy. And that's actually not quite the same thing. So I'm very aware that our society values thinness. So I'm not trying to equate like it with fat phobia. It's not the same thing. I never got people really coming at me with disgust or like telling me how I should eat. Well, occasionally, but not to the same degree. But I felt like I wasn't taking enough space at all. I felt like so masculinity also, which is associated with being bigger, taking up space, being hairy, being physically, big Chad jawline, whatever. Yeah, Neanderthal. That also feels like this crazy novelty. And I'm with you. Like, I feel like it's a difficult dance to play. When I made like the throwaway statement about I'm going to the gym and I'm going there to hate myself, it's kind of a joke, it's kind of, there's an element of that going on somewhere inside. But the sad thing for me is I started to go to the gym because I was skinny and I didn't want to be skinny. And guess what? That's a terrible motivator. It's a horrendous motivator, because it's a motivator where you go at the end of the session, you look in the mirror, you see no change, you feel like shit, you go again, you see no change, you're like, is this just it? Forever and ever? I don't know if I can do this. And sadly, didn't start in a healthy way, definitely didn't start in a healthy way, but it shifted. And when I started to feel better about my body, sadly, that's how it happened for me. And I would say, if you can, skip the bit where you stare at the mirror and you hate yourself, if that's at all possible. But now, because I don't hate my body, I really enjoy the gym, because I enjoy being in my body. And it's not, as much as I do see that guy and go, wish I looked like him, or I look in the mirror and it's an unflattering angle and I feel sad, I definitely have that. I generally am just like, I really like this. I'm alive. My heart's beating, and I lifted that thing up, and I'm alive. I get to be alive. This is my body doing what it wants to do. It wants to be physical. It wants to move. And then at the end, spent an hour, and I didn't build anything important. I didn't write a poem. I just lifted some heavy stuff, but I did a thing for an hour, and that's an hour of my day. I can be like, yeah, I did some stuff. I moved some things around, and then when I leave, I always feel just like, yeah, that's what my body wants to do. That feels right for me. The worst motivator is guilt. When I try to motivate myself with guilt, it was horrible. It was like dragging myself through sludge. As soon as I started to motivate myself with, I like this, I like how it feels, and I like how I feel, then it becomes addictive. And one of the things I'm always aware of, if I put up a photo in the gym where I think I look great, that for me may just be, oh, I'm validating how I look. I think I look nice. Isn't that nice? I've come so far. But someone who was me 15 years ago who really fucking hates their body right now, looking at that, how does that make them feel? And this is when I get into a bit of a spiral. Like, I may not be meaning to do harm, but by participating in this, am I doing harm?
It feeds this spiral of you validating yourself, not in your own way, but because of how social media works, is invalidating someone else who has less, because all of those platforms are designed to make us want more and to make us feel bad about who we are, because happy people don't buy things. But then I think there's no ethical consumption under capitalism.
I was going to say there's no ethical protein shake drinking under capitalism. Was where I was going.
You are not responsible for the actions of others. Celebrating your success is not pulling down anyone else. Unless you are in your success pulling other people down, in which case you're probably not as successful as you want to pretend you are. But that's not the point. I would say it's not up to you to try and manage other people's feelings. Yes, the apps and the platforms are all very toxic, and they are designed to be that way. They are working as intended, and they are making us all worse. But that's not your fault. The thing that people don't see is all of the stuff internally. When people look at you or me or any of the other like supermodels out there, they see this perfect being that just exists like that in the moment. They don't see the skinny 11-year-old who would be so excited to know that in 25 years they're going to look like you do now, or the chunky kid eating his feelings who's going to know that when they get to my age, eventually, they won't have to eat their feelings and they won't have to feel sad and alone and all that kind of thing. And this, again, it leads into all of the queer stuff. It's like, because whether implicitly or explicitly, we are outsiders, we are the other in a lot of ways growing up, it becomes part of the way that we think. And then to see all of those things that we are othered for being accepted and becoming a treasured and cherished part of who we are, it would be very exciting for them to see that now. But the people on Instagram don't see that. All they say is, oh, look at him with his arms out again. Oh, he's got his tits out.
That's something that I think we can see why queer people fall into that trap maybe more than others, because we've had these experiences of being othered, of feeling ugly, of feeling like a freak. But also, we talk about Narcissus, right? Staring at his reflection. Let's talk about reflections. And this is something that's difficult to like discuss, but obviously not all queer people have same gender desire, but those of us that do, there is this dangerous element of the thing that you love or you're pursuing or you're attracted to is also possibly a reflection of you. So if I was single and I saw a really hot guy, my brain will do two things. It will be, oh my God, he's beautiful, I'd like to kiss him. And, oh my God, he's beautiful, I want to be him. That's quite a dark and difficult thing. That it's unfair to label that narcissism because, you know, that seems a bit cruel, right? That's just a fact of, if you are attracted in that way to someone you could theoretically look like, theoretically, it does have that push and pull. But I think, that's something else to wrestle with the queer conscious that makes it, again, more complicated. And I was going to add another thing, to quote the wonderful Natalie Wynn, aka ContraPoints, to misquote her wonderfully as well. She spoke about this idea that we're all seeking love. Humans want to be loved. Every kind of person, and I say love can come in any kind of form. It doesn't have to be sexual or romantic, but we all want to be loved, cared for, appreciated. But then there's this other drive, and it's like this Homeric, this classical drive for like glory and incredible beauty. It's this weird thing that's the one thing that drives us to want to not just be loved, but to be better than our friends, to succeed, to be perceived as incredible, as wonderful, as worthy of envy, I think is what she says. And that drive is quite destructive. I think we all have it. Maybe you can't even just completely therapize it away. I think it's just kind of something to be really aware of. But that's something that I think is another part of that queer experience. When I find myself thinking those things, I have to have a stern word with Sacha, because I don't think that leads to a happy place.
I find practicing compersion when I find myself in those kind of situations is a really useful way of not silencing that voice and not repressing or shutting it down, but by turning it into a more positive feeling outcome. So compersion is feeling happy for someone else for what they have achieved. So it's rather than being like, oh, I wish I was like them, or oh, they don't deserve that, I deserve that, blah, 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 is to find a way to be happy for them in their successes without detracting from yourself. So you've got a book out. Well done. I should write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. I don't see why Sacha should have a book when I haven't written one, blah, blah, blah. Would be a thought that crosses my mind at least once a day. So then from there, the practice would be, all right, well, just because I want to write a book and haven't actually done it doesn't mean I can't feel good for Sacha, because Sacha has sat down, has done the work, is still doing the work, and Sacha writing a book doesn't stop me writing a book. There is nothing that stops me from doing what Sacha is doing other than time and priorities and things like that. Yeah, all right, you've made the effort to do that, and good for you. And just kind of talking myself down from that kind of, oh, I don't see why other people should be successful if I'm not successful, and actually kind of thinking, you know what, it's a lot of work. I'm really pleased that Sacha has put in the work and done all this, because that's an amazing thing. It comes with the self-love of going, you know what, it's okay that we don't have this thing that they have. And if we wanted it, yes, we could go out and get it. Do we actually want to put the work in to go out and do it? Because if we do, we can do that. If we don't, then we can feel happy for this person for what they've got and not hate them for being more successful.
Everything you say is correct and accurate and lovely. You said to me, you know, you can only be responsible for your own life, your own body to some degree. And like, I'm a socialist, so I don't like that kind of like, my life is my life and your life is your life. So I've just been thinking a nice way of saying it is like, what if we're all like on an allotment and we all have a little different patch of like soil to tend, right? And like they're side by side and they do influence each other. So if you get pests in your crop, it could go into the one next door. And if you build a massive tree there, it's going to cast shade over everyone else's garden, or their fruit's going to die. So you have to be wary of other people's. But at the same time, you can only manage that and then maybe have a chat over the fence to see how your friends are doing. But it's overthinking. Like sometimes I think because queer people, we are so interconnected and our community is really valuable, we have to think about, question everything like gender, body, sex, all this stuff that's like received wisdom we have to pull apart, which is really good. I think it's really good for the brain to chew on those things. But it also can lead to the point where we like disintegrate the ability to have fun, because or to feel happy, because we're just like staring at this thing like, yes, but is this Marxist praxis? I'm like, no, I'm having a protein shake. I don't have to dismantle the patriarchy right now. I'm a human. I live in a time. I live in a society. I am built from all the experiences I've ever had, and I'm learning and I'm trying. So I'm going to tend my little allotment. And if that means I'm going to spend a bit of time just making sure that my pear tree is really aesthetic for my liking, then so a little topiary over there, fine. But then, you know, I'm also going to grow vegetables for the revolution. So that as well.
As it should be. The socialism stuff comes back into it because, yeah, I'm a pretty solid socialist. Although that said, I haven't read any of the books. I don't know any of the theory behind it, but I think that people looking out for one another is a good thing. It's the basis of humanity. It is what we do best. And it's only when that gets lost or corrupted that things go tits up. Waves a hand at the rest of the world right now. Build together, not pulling down. Back to what we talked about earlier. It's like, hating them because they're so successful. Blah, 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 blah. Or you could find ways to be pleased for them and be positive, and then their success would continue unabated because your opinion does not matter. And also, you'd be feeling happier about the fucking thing. And there might be a way that you can work together and like share some resources. Like maybe I have too much compost. You've got some insect repellent. We could share and everyone would be better off. Building together is always a better way. Alloys are stronger, etc.
I love that. We've gone from Narcissus to gym culture to compost. It's been a journey.
The thing that just crossed my mind then was, be aware that everyone is fighting their own internal battles. Use this, manipulate them, become all powerful.
Find them, take them, marry them, become them, wear their face as a mask.
And in the darkness bind them.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful point to end on. Thank you so much. Let's pay some bills. Tell us about your book, Sacha.
Oh my God, thank you for so subtly plugging that. Yes, this is my first book. It's called Queer as Folklore. So I've been working in museums and heritage for about 15 years now. And I've been a mythology and history nerd my whole life. And I'm a gay dude. So I put them all together and I wrote a book. And each chapter is about a different mythical creature, but it kind of pans off in a million different directions. It's looking at the LGBTQ plus history of all those like fantasy, folklore, mythology tropes, all the stuff in fantasy and fiction from all over the world from an LGBT perspective. I'm really proud of it. I hope you like it as much as I liked writing it. Comes out 22nd of August in the UK, 5th of November in North America, and the rest of the world. If you Google Queer as Folklore, you'll find it, and then hopefully you can get your grubby mitts on it. Oh, and there's an audiobook coming, but it won't be voiced by me because when I try and read things, I giggle. So they're going to find a proper voice reader to read it properly. But yes, that's my book.
That must have got lost in my spam filter somewhere, the invitation to be the voice of your audiobook.
Oh, do you think that as an author I get a say in anything? No.
I'm teasing.
I get told my lovely publisher, who is Unbound, lovely, but the way it works in publishing is you get told something like, "Hi, we really like this cover," and that means this is the cover you're going to have. I hope you like it. So there you go.
And do you like it? Is it a good cover?
Really
I'll cut this out if you say no. Don't worry.
But no, it's actually a gorgeous cover. It's been designed by this artist called Beto, and he's done illustrations for the book as well. And it's like collage monsters and mythical creatures. It's very cool.
Awesome. And so there will be a link available in the show notes to this, and it's available in all good bookshops. And did you say you're doing a signing tour as well, or a lecture tour, or some kind of talking tour?
So what happens is you get invited to places to go and talk about the book, and you do that. And this is all new to me, so I will be traveling to gay bookshops and other bookshops and universities, and hey, check out my book. Let me read a passage for you. If you want to do that, you can get in touch with me at Sacha Coward on Twitter.
That was the last thing we were going to do, was if they want to talk to you about anything queer or folklore-y or just look at your arms, where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter as Sacha, SACHA Coward. I'm on Instagram too, but I don't use it very much. So drop me a message on Twitter, although I don't have a personal, private, media work. It's all the same thing. So it's a really odd melange of look at my arms. What's going on with Palestine? This is a shop I went to yesterday. This is a childhood reflection on being queer. It's very messy. You don't need to follow me if that's going to give you an aneurysm, but say hello.
That was Probably True, the LGBTQ plus storytelling project created to remind all of our queer siblings that we are none of us alone. If you liked it, then comment, share, subscribe, and join the Patreon. Or just tell all your friends. If you didn't like it, tell me. Come at me, bro.